Hey everybody, what's up? My name is James Grotjowalski from Grand Rapids, Michigan for aetoots.com, and today what we're going to be making is a sunset behind a tree within a field. So here is the final product. Alright, before we begin, I'd just like to thank John Art for the music. Very talented piano player whom I lived with for a couple months, and he recorded that on my computer. Pretty much through this video that we'll be making, the things that we'll be working with is a plugin for No Light Factory, which will create our sun, and then trap code shine, which creates the light rays coming out of the branches just like a normal sunset would. And then first off, we need to acquire our tree and our clouds so we could have those layers to animate with. So I went to sxc.hu. I searched tree field, and you can find this on sxc.hu. Also, I just did a simple search for clouds, and this is the one that came up on the first page, but these will also be available to you. Alright, so once you download those, let's head on over to Photoshop to do some image editing. Oh, sorry about that. That's one of my friends, Travis Cucci. He likes bowls a lot. Yeah. Alright. Oh, and that's my friend Andy Richter. He's definitely into snakes, kind of in a creepy way, I guess. But those are my friends I hang out with. We're all kind of weird. Anyways, once you open up your tree image that you've downloaded, what we need to do is extract the sky from the background of the sky to just isolate this tree. So we need to create this image as its own layer, so I hold Alt and double click it, and what we want to do is crush these blues so we can select the blue channel. So what we're going to do is duplicate this layer, go to levels, you can hold Apple, hit L, and we're going to crush the blacks and bring it up, and then we're going to bring up the whites, kind of put these together so the sky element becomes very blue, distinct blue that we can take from it. So what we do is hit OK, and now we want to go to the channels and hold the Apple button so we can make a selection of just the blue channel, and you can now see that it makes a nice little selection of the blue. We can go back to the layers, and what we can do is hide this layer that we changed the levels on, select our original layer, and we want to invert the selection so that it only selects the tree and the floor element. So hold Apple Shift I, and now you have the tree element and the ground element selected. What I've noticed though right now is if we were to cut this out, it would be pretty hard edges. So what I would do is go to Select, Modify, and Smooth the edges, and I do maybe about 2 pixels, and hit OK. And what we want to do now is make that a layer mask. So just hit the layer mask button down here, and now you have it extracted from the sky pretty well. And if you want to check to see if all the sky element is gone, what I would do is just make a new layer and put it underneath, and make a black layer behind it just to see what it looks like. Okay, now we can see that the tree is cut out pretty well. I noticed though that if you zoom in, the tree looks blue all around the edges. So what I do is change the hue of this blue to match more of this green on the tree branches, and it just looks a little more natural. So what we want to do is select the tree layer and go up to Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. And you can replace colors this way. So if you wanted to get rid of a red, you can select just the red of an image, and you can change that to a pink or a blue or a green or whatever you want. Or you can desaturate it too, kind of do a Pleasantville effect too with this replace color mode. So what I'm doing is wanting to change this blue to green or black. So I'm going to select the green or the blue spots. If I hold shift, I can select more spots of blue. I'm going to undo that. Let's see. Okay, and you can see your selection here. Now what I want to do is just change the hue of that. And you can see right now that the hue is now changing. And I am going to bump down the lightness so it's a little darker. And that looks okay to me, I would say. Yeah. This is going to be more of a silhouette anyway, so the color doesn't matter too much. So what you want to do is hit OK. And we will zoom back out. Alrighty, now I notice this bottom here is kind of not very cut out because there was kind of a blue spill. So I'm going to kind of cut that out. So I just select the layer mask, go to my brush tool, and just kind of use black. And I'm going to just kind of cut it out, just kind of brush it out so it's in kind of a clean edge. You don't have to be too fancy with it. And we will just make a nice little line for that. Okay. I'm not a perfectionist, but if you want to be, take your time. It's fine with you. It's fine with me. Alright, now we have our cutout. We want to save that as a Photoshop file, which I've already done. And then also for the clouds layer, we do not have to do anything to it. Just download it. You have the image already online, and we will be animating these clouds. So I don't know why I opened it up in Photoshop, but I'm just showing you anyways. Anyways, let's skip on over to After Effects. And what we want to do is create a new composition. If my computer there we go, new composition. We do HDV 1080 24 frames, widescreen. Now you don't have to do this aspect ratio or anything like that. This is up to you, but this is what I like to use. 18 seconds long, and hit OK. Alright, now we have our composition. Now we want to import our Photoshop file of our tree and then also our clouds. Alright, we want to import our Photoshop layers. Make sure they're import as composition and hit open. These files are a little bit bigger, so it might take a little bit to import, but once they are, they're here. Alright, so I'm going to rename this composition our final comp. Alright, and what we want to do is animate our clouds layer. So what we want to do is just open up that composition, and already we have our cloud layer. I will just delete the background there. Alright, so to animate these clouds moving across, there's a nice tutorial on our Aaron Bennett's site, allbetsareoff.com, and he talks about creating 3D cloud motion from a still image, and he's talking about how users submitted all kinds of different examples and different ways to animate clouds, and he found this one to be the easiest and the best looking, and so I decided to use it as well. Look at that, sharing knowledge. So anyways, we'll jump back to After Effects. The way to do this is to use the transform tool. So we'll go to Effects Presets and search transform, drop down to our layer, and what you have to do is you move your anchor point to the bottom left of the layer. So click anchor point position, go right to the bottom left of the layer and click. Now our layer moves out of the way, so to fix that all you do is just select it and move it right on back. Like so. Okay. Let's go back. Alrighty. So what we do is we change the skew axis to 90, And what this does is what it does is it skews it over, almost kind of like a fan kind of deal. I don't know how to explain it, but what we do is we animate it on the skew value, and what it does is you can see that it moves it left to right. And this is the most realistic because the bottom layers, the bottom cloud images that are farther away, aren't going to be moving as fast as the clouds that are closer to you, which is more like real life. All the clouds aren't moving all at the same exact time. The ones that are closer to you are moving closer. So, or faster, I should say. So what we want to do is animate this over time. So I'll click the stopwatch position on skew, move it on over to the end of our comp, and animate it over to the right. Okay. Now we have a problem here. We have it's getting cropped out, as you can see. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale it up. I don't need to use the whole image. I'm just going to move it on over till it fits all in the frame like that. So now we can see it moves on over and our clouds are moving pretty quickly. Now to add even more realism to this, you could duplicate this layer and just use the top portion, mask out the top portion, and you could use a turbulent displace effect, which would kind of move the clouds a little bit around like they're animating in time-lapse form, because you obviously know that clouds don't stay the same shape throughout time. They actually morph into other shapes, and sometimes they disappear and all that. So if you want to go ahead and do that, that'd be great. And if you find out something cool about it, send it my way so I can see it for myself. Anyways, we're animating clouds now, so what we want to do is go back to our final composition and import that clouds layer. Alright, scale it down, move it up about there. That looks pretty good. Now we got some cool looking animated clouds. Let's move it back up a little bit more. Maybe scale it down to 69%. 64. No. 67. Okay, 68. That likes to be nice. Alright, there. Alright, we want to now import our tree layer. So I'm going to just select the individual layer and drag it on top. And I'm going to scale it down just about where it fits. And move it on down about right there. Alrighty, cool. Now what we want is, we want this kind of be a silhouette. We could have done this in Photoshop, but I'm just going to do it in After Effects anyways. I'm going to change the hue and saturation of it. Bring it down. I could just apply a tint to it, but I'm going to do it this way because that's how I like to do it. You can apply a tint all the way on black. I'm going to bring all the lightness all the way down, and it does the same exact thing. Look at that. Anyways, what we want to do is make a new layer. Click on composition, make a new layer. Call it Sun. Make comp size and hit OK. Alright, go to layer, effect, no light factory easy. There are different flares. You can animate the positions and the scales and make them look pretty sweet. Let's drag this behind our tree layer. Alright, so we're going to drag that down behind our layer. So now that our light source location, it goes behind the tree. What we want to do is change the flare type to sunset, which we have a cool looking sun here, and there's a nice little flare coming from it, and you can see it looks kind of realistic now, but we want this to interact with the tree. We want more light rays to come out. So what we're going to do is put our sun on over here, and we're going to make a new adjustment layer. And our adjustment layer will be our trap code Shine. So let's rename it Shine and add that effect to it, trap code Shine. Alrighty. Now what we want to do is we want all these rays to interact with the tree and the clouds. We kind of want these rays to make the brightness of the clouds different. I like natural, but I also like to make it look a little fake too, to make it look a little unreal. So anyways, I'm going to set the transfer mode to hard light. Okay. And we can move our source point all and over. And what we want to do is you can see it interacts with the sun already. And wherever the sun is, it's going to be making a nice little shine. Now you can see if we move it behind the sun, we get a kind of a nice little flare. Now if we bring the scale of our sun up, the more shine we're going to have coming from it, which is pretty cool. You can make some pretty cool, interesting things. So what we want to do is we want to link the source point up to the middle of the sun. So what we do is we go back to our sun and we double click the source location, which is right here. And now we want to go back to our shine and alt click our source point, which creates an expression. And what we want to do is pick whip the source point to the light source location, or our sun location. Let go, click off of it, and now what we see is if we move our sun around to different spots, shine will stay right with it. And now you can see right when you go behind the trees, you got some pretty cool flares coming on out here. Looks a little bit more realistic now. Alrighty. What we want to do is animate the scale of the sun to grow bigger as it's setting. Obviously that's what happens in real life, so that's what we're going to do in After Effects. So what we want to do is click on our sun, go to the beginning of our composition, and hit a stopwatch for scale. Alright, and at the end of it, I would say let's bring it out to I like the sun to be about this big. I like big suns. The bigger the sun, the more you like it. I know, that's my motto. That's my life motto. Alright, cool. So we set 2 keyframes. Now the sun's growing bigger. Now what we want to do is have it set. So we want to change the location of the light source, or the sun. So we hit a stopwatch, click stopwatch, go to the beginning of the composition, move it on over to the corner, and for some reason when I go out of the composition, I don't know why, but I can notice these rays, like it doesn't meet all the way out here. So if anybody knows how to change that or get rid of that, that'd be great. But otherwise, I'm just gonna go off of what I know and move it towards the edge a little bit more, start it there. And I'm going to go to the end of the composition and move it on all the way down to about there. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, sweet. So we have a pretty sweet looking sunset now. The next things we should do is change the brightness. What I do is I animate the brightness of the sun. So when it's about here, it's pretty bright, and then when it gets down here, the brightness goes down. So I'm going to just see what it looks like if I bring the brightness up. Ooh, that's pretty bright sun. Yes, it is. Let's change this ray length. Let's see what that looks like. That's pretty cool too. I just like to test and see what parameters do to each other, because since they kind of work off each other and have different modes, that's just kind of how it works. But as for this situation, I actually wanted the sun, the light rays, to interact with a little bit more, so I set it to add, and now you can see it looks more of a blown out sun, and so when it goes through, you really can't see the definition of it because it's adding on to the cloud composition or the cloud layers. So this isn't exactly what I want, so I'm going to bring the brightness of the sun down to about 40 to 50, something like that. Alright, so I'm going to animate the brightness from up here, from pretty high to lower. So I'm going to hit stopwatch and brightness. I'll bring it up to 70. Then we go to the end, and I'll bring it back down to 48 where it looked pretty nice. So if we now solo the sun layer, we can see that it's growing bigger, and yeah, it looks pretty good. See how it looks with everything else. Kind of looks like it's behind the clouds too, which is pretty sweet. One thing that after I've noticed making this video too is that this sun, if you were to look at it in real life, it'd blow out these tree limbs a lot more. So you could duplicate the sun and just have it from this section to this section, be brighter, or even on top of the tree layer, however you want. But as for now, I'm just going to keep it as is. Okay, so I imported the AE Totes logo. What I wanted to do is drag it down in here behind the tree layer. Okie dokie. And I'm going to scale it down just a bit. About right there. That looks good. Okay. What we want to do is animate the camera going from here to about over here. So we want to make a new camera. The 35mm. It's good. We'll just call it cam. It said camera, but I like cam. Alright, and hit OK. Now, what we want to do is move into this spot. So what I'm going to do is, instead of animating the camera position, I'm going to make it easier on myself and make a new null object. And this null object will be my camera controls. And I'm going to add an preset onto it, separate X, Y, Z position. This gives me control over X, Y, and Z. So I'll drop it on there. And what I want to do is parent this camera to my camera controls. So I'll pick whip to the camera controls. Alright, so I linked the camera to the camera controls by parenting it and changed my layers to be 3D. And now I have control over the X position, the Y position, and the Z position. Now the Z position doesn't work because I need to make my null object a 3D layer. So once I make it a 3D layer, I can now animate the Z position. So what I want to do is click stopwatch my X position, I would say Y and Z. Now I made 3 keyframes by hitting U. Go to the end of the composition, zoom on into here. Now we can go to the left. See how much easier it is to control the camera this way. And go on to the right. Alright, I'm going to zoom out just a bit here. And I would say that looks pretty good. I'll go down a little bit. Okay. Now I want to be a little bit closer to that logo when the sun's coming through. So I'm going to bring my keyframes into here a little bit more. And hold Shift F9 and that'll ease them in. And now I want my AE Totes logo to animate in. So I'm going to hit the position, P for position, and click the stopwatch. And let's just bring it down for now. Bring it down a little bit. Alright, I'd say once it gets to about here, I want it to come in. So we actually can just start our layer here if we want. I'll just drag it on over. And takes about 2 seconds, I would say, to get in. And I want it to just kind of come up right there. Alright, hit Shift F9 to ease that in. And that looks about good, I would say. Okay, now we will add some adjustment layers to it. So we are going to add a adjustment layer. I'm going to call this fast blur, and we want to apply fast blur to this adjustment layer. Alright, and set it to about 8. Alright, now we see it blurs out a bit. We want to set this mode to overlay. And what it does is it pops the colors out a lot, as you can tell when you take it off, which is nice. Plus it makes it like a nice little blur to it, but it doesn't blur it out too much. The next one we want to do is I want to add like kind of a color ramp to this, and I'm going to put a ramp on top. I just want to add a little bit of color. I kind of want to make like a more of a reddish color. Let's set it to radial. Let's put the red on over here, and let's keep the white on over here like that. Alright, set that to add. And we want white, I'm sorry. We want that to be, you can see it as it updates. I think I used maybe a dark blue, somewhere around there. Something that gives it like a darker over here and a brighter red over here. Let's just do kind of a bluish color. I kind of like that. And you can obviously animate too, but I want to keep it this. Also, I'm going to change the opacity of this down to maybe 10%. Okay. Now you can see not much of a difference. It's subtle, but you can see it. Just add some color to the shine layer. Also, we want to add some noise, so make a new adjustment. Oh, I'm sorry. Make a new goodness gracious, new adjustment layer, and let's call that noise. And I'm going to add noise to that, and about 8%. And you can see if you zoom in, the effect that it has on the pixels just makes it look like a little bit more if it was shot on video, not so crisp and clean. It's all up to you. But that's pretty much what we have here for our tutorial. You can see a lot of grain in here, so I'm going to actually I'm just going to bump the opacity down about 40%. That looks a little better. There's noise there, but you can't tell too much. Yeah, so that concludes it for the sunset behind the trees within the field tutorial. I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Have a good day. My name is James Grotchwalski for aetoots.com.